Hello everyone. Welcome to this webinar, the final one of this week's fantastic Lymphoedema Awareness Week 2024, and we're delighted that you're joining us. My name's Rebecca Elwell and I'm the Lymphoedema Advanced Nurse Practitioner at the Royal Stoke University Hospital and a very proud trustee of the British Lymphology Society and a member of the British Lymphology Society's Children with Special Interest group. So welcome. I really hope you've been able to join all of the other webinars. If you haven't, don't worry, you can watch on demand. And we'd love you to be sharing these with your colleagues and through your social media networks. So that would be amazing if you were able to help us out and to continue to raise awareness long past this Lymphoedema Awareness Week. Today's webinar is with great excitement that I introduced to you. I was lucky enough to speak to Didi Oku and she and I were in conversation talking about managing fears, risks and barriers to being active when you have lymphedema. So without further ado, we'll get on to the discussion. You'll watch a live video first and foremost, and then I'm going to be welcoming Didi and Mark Pearson, who I'll introduce after the video to you. And we really want to hear your questions and comments in the chat. And if you put your questions straight into the question box, we'll be able to direct them straight to our special guests after the video. And if you want to ask any queries about how the webinar works or whether you need any assistance, then please put that in the chat. We'll be constantly monitoring that throughout. So I'll be quiet now and we'll watch the video. Many thanks.
Hi, I'm Becky. I'm the trustee of the British Lymphology Society, conference organiser and member of the Children with Lymphoedema Special Interest Group, and I'm delighted to have with me today.
I'm Didi and I am not as exciting. I'm a student at the University of Birmingham and I'm also a patient with primary lymphedema in the whole of my left leg.
So, Didi, thank you for being with us today. It's really exciting to have the opportunity to talk to you some more about what it's like to have primary lymphedema and hopefully to share some of the importance of getting the information out there. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to ask you was, what age were you when you were first diagnosed with lymphedema? And were you diagnosed with lymphedema straight away, or did you have a delay in getting your diagnosis?
So it's actually a genetic mutation from birth, so technically there's always been a problem with my system, but it never became an issue until I was 12 years old. There was never a visible sign.
So as a baby and a toddler you didn't have any changes?
No, nothing until I was 12.
Okay.
And one day we kind of just looked at my leg and went, oh, why is my thigh bigger than the other? We were quite like shocked. We're like, oh, what's going on here?
So you were at high school then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was in secondary school.
Yeah.
I think I was about year 7.
Yeah.
And I went through another year so from 12 to 13, so a whole year of doing double the amount of exercise on my right leg because we thought my right leg was the issue because I do athletics.
Okay.
So we thought it was a muscle imbalance because my left leg is actually the dominant leg within sport. So we genuinely assumed.
And you were fit and well in yourself?
Oh yeah. I was very active.
Yeah.
I was a national athlete.
Wow.
I guess I still am a national athlete. I was a national athlete.
Just drop that in.
No. I also was doing netball and hockey on the side as well. So it was a lot of activity.
So your leg wasn't stopping you doing those things?
No.
You just didn't know why it was swollen?
No, and it wasn't even that noticeable. So it was literally just the thigh.
Okay.
And it wasn't that big of a difference.
Okay.
That's why the definition was still there within my leg. We genuinely.
So it wasn't weaker or?
No.
Okay.
And then a year later, I did a netball tournament and a cross-country race on the same day.
Okay.
And the day after that, I woke up with red blotches all over my leg and fever.
Right.
Yeah. And
so you didn't know what was happening then at all?
Oh no! Okay. In fact, we didn't know until a good couple of years later.
So that was probably really scary for you and your parents.
Oh yeah. Well, we thought it was a muscle tear.
Yeah.
We thought my muscle had just been torn, and I took 2 months off of training, so I got no antibiotics, no nothing, because obviously we didn't know it was cellulitis.
Wow, so you fought off the infection, you became more well again afterwards, but you had no explanation as to why that was happening.
Exactly.
So what happened then? What was your own doctor, what was your GP saying at the time?
It wasn't great. It wasn't great at all.
They didn't know either then?
They had no clue. A consultant told me to take Calpol, so we kind of, obviously I'm 6 foot, I'm quite tall, so
you were very fit and active as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and the fact that they're saying Calpol was it's like they're kind of taking it as a joke at this point. So I got referred to Gosh. They did some tests.
And that's Great Ormond Street
Great
Hospital.
Ormond Street,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Sorry, the way I abbreviate everything. Well, I'm just Gosh. But so they did a biopsy on my leg, which I think made
that must have been super scary to have got sent to a specialist children's
get
hospital.
told about it.
You were fit, you were active, you were well, and then you were going to a hospital that's renowned for seeing sick children.
Yes.
And that must have been really scary.
It was, because obviously I had a seemingly normal life before that, so like I never would have, like, no one else in my family's ever like ill and that sort of thing.
No. So it wasn't in your family either? There
no.
With that?
It was genetic mutation, but not hereditary.
No, wow.
So it was one of those where it's just like I was kind of just felt a bit isolated.
Definitely.
Because obviously I didn't know anyone else who had it either.
And while your leg was swollen and before you knew what was going on, were you treated differently? Did people tease you? Because you said it wasn't that bad,
not
visible
so
difference.
At first it was not visible at all, so we actually took the mick out of it quite a lot. I used to call her my fat leg. But then over time, right around when I got diagnosed, really, it started gradually increasing. So after the biopsy...
So you had the biopsy at Great Ormond Street?
Yes.
Okay, and what did they say?
They said that there's a lymphatic malformation, but they can't understand what's causing it.
Right.
They don't know whether it's lymphedema, they just know there's a malformation.
Okay, so you knew there was something wrong, but not what it was.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just kept telling me I'm really unique. So
well, you are.
Thank you. But yeah, no, so when I was 16 I got moved to St George's, who they ran lymph scintigraphy scans and that sort of stuff, and then that's when they confirmed it was primary lymphedema. It's like Ilianogal sclerosis, so it's quite the rare one form. It's a very rare form. Yeah, that's why it took so long for them to figure out, and that's why it started in the thigh. It didn't just start overall everywhere. So
so your leg wasn't swollen. You could still get your trainers on, you could still wear normal shoes and everything. So
about 15, 16 it's when it already spread within a year to my calf and ankle and foot, and over time it just kept getting bigger to the point where there's no shape in my calf, or I can't see the bone in my knees, or there's no bone in my ankle.
So the definition started to be changed. So whereas you had good muscle definition even at the start of the swelling with your running and with your athletics and your sport, that started to be lost then.
Yeah, and I think the actual muscle itself is lost in the sense of with the fluid pressing on it, I really do struggle to like tense it and that sort of stuff.
So it did start to change your ability.
So it started to change my ability over time, and I noticed that I couldn't get my leg into the same positions as I could. So I was a high jumper. And it's like, if I can't even get my leg above 50, 60 degrees, that's not
And was that because your leg felt heavy, or was it weaker?
Both.
Okay.
I felt like, so it was so heavy, there's genuinely a tension, and the is it called the IT?
In the groin, high up.
Yeah, so like that, like if I do that hurts.
Okay.
And it's like the tension's too much, and at the same time,
so you had to start to adapt what activities you were doing.
Yes, everything had to start getting adapted. I actually had the coaches I used to be with actually dropped me because they were too scared I was going to get injured.
Well, that must have been really hard. You'd been referred to a specialist hospital. They didn't know what was wrong. They knew there was something wrong, but not what.
Yeah.
You then made it through to one of the specialist centres, which the special interest group, the British Lymphoedema Children's Society Special Interest Group, we're really passionate about people getting to a specialist centre where there is an understanding of what's happening. So for children and their families and young people with lymphedema, how important do you think that was, finding out exactly what was wrong with you?
So it was really important, definitely, because it gives you like at least a sense of authority, in the sense that you kind of know what you're dealing with. In particular at St George's, the doctors and nurses and stuff were brilliant. They were so brilliant. There's one
and did it allay your fears because you knew what it was, rather than thinking it could have been something that might have changed over time, or might have been something that you'd have to have more tests for? Did it make you feel at least you knew what it was?
Yeah, at least I knew what it was, but at the same time I was at first a little bit like, oh, now I know what it is. This is actually really serious. So the realisation of,
the impact.
Yes, exactly. So
and did they tell you then that was for life?
Yes.
Wow.
And they did tell me it was going to progress over time.
Okay.
So
so you were 15-ish.
Yeah, 15-ish.
Finding out you've got a lifelong condition that was going to affect your career, the sporting choices that you'd be making.
Yes.
That it was going to affect your appearance.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, the impact of that at 15, you're going through loads of changes anyway, aren't you? Your whole body's changing.
Oh,
You like somebody one minute, you hate them the next. Everything's like up and down.
Exactly.
How was that mentally and emotionally for you? Was it hard?
It was really hard. Like, I don't really sugarcoat that. Like, I really did struggle. It did get to a point where I would not leave the house to see friends, or like I would just like wallow in self-pity and just be like,
so young to be so isolated.
I just
really
because
hard.
I'm always I like to hope I'm quite a bubbly person.
Oh my god.
But like and I would still show that to everyone, but I just felt so
outwardly,
down.
Yes,
not inside. I lost that love for myself, really. Like, I completely went. I started detaching my leg from me, so I call her her.
I was going to say she's definitely a female.
Oh yeah,
female.
Definitely. So like,
and what was that like for your mum and dad?
Oh, it was tough on them, because I'll be like crying in pain, because it's quite for me. I really struggle with the pain.
And they've got this really fit, really active, go get 'em, life loving, bouncy, bubbly girl.
Exactly.
And then they saw that.
So it's more like when they knew how good of an athlete I was at the time, so they're looking at that and then looking at what this like spiral, this like de-evolution of me, and they felt really disheartened, especially because they felt like they couldn't help, because obviously it's not curable in that sense, is it?
To be in that position as a parent, like just wanting to make it right for
it was
you.
awful, because if I was having one of my little tantrums, or like I was like having a little like
meltdown.
Fit, a little meltdown, and then at the same time I felt really bad when I was doing it, because I could see that they visibly could not help me, and it's like they were like, I wish if I could take it away I wouldn't. It's like, I'm like, you shouldn't even have to be thinking about that, do you know what I mean? But they're definitely a lot better. As my attitude changed, it helped them to change their attitude as well, in the sense of like they didn't have that they weren't as upset all the time as I started to increase my mood.
Was it just age that helped with that, do you think? Was it just a process you had to go through of sort of understanding that this was, think you were going to be able to do things, but do things differently?
Yeah, it was like a realisation sort of thing. It was kind of like over time. Recently, to be fair, only like 2.5 years ago, I kind of...
And what age are you now, Didi?
20, sorry.
20.
I'm 20.
So that's still really, really young. Like you say, you're studying.
Yes.
What have been the major changes then in your life from having lymphedema?
Clothes are one thing.
Wow.
So obviously,
especially as a young,
I love my little outfit choices.
Yeah.
But so then over time,
and you do always look amazing.
Thank you. No, but like, so I realised that over time, I couldn't fit into my shoes, or I couldn't fit into my jeans.
So shoes became a problem, which they obviously hadn't been at the start.
They are a problem
with your
now.
activities, that changed then what trainers you were able to wear, what fashionable shoes you were able to wear. And then I guess you'd had cellulitis as well.
I've had cellulitis maybe 6-7 times now.
Oh my gosh, okay. And has that been getting worse over time? Wow, so each episode you've had has been more severe.
Yes.
So you've been physically unwell as well as having symptoms in your leg.
Oh yeah. So the last one was just last month actually, and I caught it quite early.
Yeah.
There was nothing visible on my leg. My leg was warmer than the other.
Okay.
And I was very feverish. I was very disorientated, cold, shivering, that sort of thing. Called the ambulance. They're like, your temperature's 40 degrees. We need to get you on something now. Yeah. Take me to the hospital, and the hospital, even though the paramedics told them to put me on stuff and to give me a bed, they left me on hospital chairs, and they didn't actually treat me for another 3 hours. So like, it's quite daunting going through that experience, because
especially when you know what's wrong.
I know what's wrong. I'm literally having to
you're the expert
at this point. It's like, because you've done it so many times, and like I was getting so anxious because I knew this was the worst one I've had, definitely by far. Like the redness, it went from having no redness to within an hour being dotted around, and then the next half an hour covering everywhere on my thigh.
So frightening, because it's so acute, isn't it? From nothing to that.
And then like the actual redness was from hip to foot, both sides. So literally my whole limb was completely bright red. I've never had that
You
before.
were saying before, the first one was just this patchy bits, and then after that you've probably had here and there, below knee or above knee, and then you end up with this whole...
That was definitely by far, that must have been the worst one. And it's like, with each infection, obviously you get more tissue damage and that sort of thing.
More damage to the lymphatics, so greater swelling.
Exactly. So I feel like my leg isn't getting down as much right now, because obviously I think I'm probably still recovering from it, to be honest.
I would imagine so, after such a short space of time.
Exactly,
and it's probably only testament to the fact that you're so fit and look after yourself so well that you have bounced back to this point. And actually we need to think, all of us, about preventative strategies for cellulitis.
Oh yes, definitely.
That's one of the things, along with many other things, that the Children with Lymphedema Special Interest Group that the British Lymphology Society guides, it's one of the things that I feel, as being part of that, we can help to raise the profile. I mean, from a patient perspective, do you think it's useful and that there's a place for bringing healthcare practitioners together who work with children with lymphedema to share their ideas?
Definitely, because with each individual patient, it's an individualistic approach, and if they can collaborate and see if there's similarities or differences, it definitely makes all the difference.
And you were going to tell us earlier, I think, about a special therapist for you, so how you'd formed that relationship and how that had changed for you over time, because you were saying about how low you were initially, which I guess impacts on your relationship with healthcare professionals, and then how that developed over time. So is that something that you can tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, so I mean, when there was first an issue with my leg and we first realised there's something wrong, obviously I'd have consultants telling me to take Calpol, and it's like, obviously I was always very, very bubbly towards the nurses and doctors, anyone I saw, and then over time, over the next 3 years maybe, I kind of got disheartened a little bit. So by the time I got to St George's, I was probably a bit of a mess. So I turn up and there's 7 doctors in a room, I'm like, oh
and you're
God.
15. It's a really hard age anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's so I get my tights fitted by Mark, and Mark is honestly
Mark is a member of our special interest group, shares all of his knowledge and skills with us, a very special person.
He's honestly my lifesaver.
Lovely rapport.
Yeah, he's such a lifesaver, because if I didn't have him as a doctor, I genuinely wouldn't.
So you can ask questions of him, you can get in touch with him when you need to for that support. You get measured for your garments, you get support on your massage therapy and the other things that you need to do, and advice. And about your infections, I would assume that's a conversation that you're constantly having regarding that. And when we think about now, so you're 20, you're studying, tell us about activity and sport for you now, in your life now, with the way things have changed, and why that's so important.
Well, so I've always been a very active person, but athletics was kind of my thing, if that makes sense.
Definitely does. You were built for athletics.
Oh, thank you. But so I kind of, at first, when I was about 15, 16, and my coaches are dropping me, and I'm just being chucked away to throwing, and I'm not built to be a thrower. I don't have the arms at all. But so
I think you could turn your hand to anything, but I guess there are bits of athletics that you love and have a passion for, and throwing for you wasn't one of them.
Exactly. But I kind of came to a realisation that I didn't need to shun myself from athletics. There is other avenues. So I've actually just been classified as a para-athlete. I'm a T42 para-athlete. Which basically,
that's amazing. Yes, explain that to us. What does that mean?
It just means so they have to generalise the categories, because obviously there's different conditions within this, and it basically means there's a hip and knee impairment. So that's how they've labelled it. Obviously mine is the whole limb that's affected. So it means I'll run with above knee amputees as well, because they categorise them in the same category as us.
So it's then look at an activity level of what you're able to achieve with other people within there. So the disability may be different, but you'll have a same or similar capability.
Exactly that. So
you're training, I would imagine, hard.
7 times a week.
7? For how long?
What do you mean?
How long is your training session?
At least an hour and a half.
Wow, that is impactful, and that must affect what you have to eat.
Oh yeah.
You know, that whole nutritional
very
balance.
High protein sort of diet. Yeah, for sure.
And again, there's the element of you've missed training because of cellulitis.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The impact of that must be very significant for you.
So the infection before the last one was in October 22.
Okay.
And that's at the start of winter training, and winter training's the block where it's like the most important
the
part.
height, it goes heightened.
It does. That's when they're proper grueling. Like, you're running laps. But so I didn't miss it though. So what happened was I jumped straight back into it, like maybe a week, 2 weeks after, only because I was like, I can't afford to, because if I take the time off training, I was like, oh no, can't do that. No. But in hindsight, should have probably taken a couple of weeks off. But
it's not as easy as that though, is
it's
it?
not as easy
when
as
your
that
timings matter down to seconds, these things are really important.
It's literally every session counts.
And what, I guess, from now, what will be your next big meets? What have you got coming up? What are you looking forward
to? I'm going to get my national classification sorted completely, because where I had that infection in August, I didn't do the competition to solidify it.
Yeah.
So I got that.
Yeah.
And I've got international classification in Italy in March, I think it is. Thank you. That's great. It's great.
That's amazing.
Then, so next year, so 2024 is a really big major championships season.
So this is the aim.
This is the aim.
Get those times right. Get that training right. Get there. And where's the big events next year? So you've got Italy for your first one, and then where have we got after that?
So
where are we going to see you?
If I get selected for GB, then Kobe, Japan for the World Para Championships, and then hopefully if I get selected for GB, the Paralympics as well in Paris.
So one take-home message that you would give to all children and families with lymphedema?
Even if you're taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, it's better than just spiraling down into that like little hole that you go into. It can be really challenging, and don't expect everything to be like all like happy, because even though like I'm bubbly and smiling and stuff, obviously sometimes I will, even right now, like sometimes I will obviously get a little bit down, but it's okay to have those down moments. It just means that you're really strong when you're fighting back. So
you're really strong when you're fighting back. I love that. Well, Didi, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing what it's like to live with primary lymphedema as a young person. You're still very, very young. Lots and lots ahead of you. We cannot wait to see you. We'll be watching and following you closely, but hopefully bringing everyone together to work for the benefit of children and families with lymphedema, and also as part of BLS, keeping our relationships with you so that you can tell us what you need from us.
I'm so
That's
grateful
what it's
for
all
this
about.
charity. 100%.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Didi. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you really enjoyed our video, and we are now available to have a discussion and answer any questions you may have. There's been some really exciting stuff going on within the chat. I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Pearson, who's a lymphedema therapist at St George's Hospital in London, working at the one of the specialist lymphedema centres in the UK. And Mark and I work together as part of the British Lymphology Society Children with Lymphedema Special Interest Group. And Mark is heading the working party this year for lympholetics. And so, Mark, welcome. We've got lots of questions that we want to talk about, and I know that we're hoping to be joined by Didi as well, which will be great. So she can answer the questions with us too. But before we get started, would you just tell us a little bit about the St George's Hospital setup for seeing children and young people with lymphedema?
So as one of the specialist centres, there's only 2 in the UK, us and Derby, that can diagnose and really help these families with children, as Didi's story was so eloquently put, that she wasn't quite sure what was going on, so that we can diagnose, we can reassure, we can give the answers that so many of these families haven't had. So they will see the consultants. They come in at consultant level, they get referred to one of our doctors or professors. And then once the diagnosis is made, sometimes they need tests, sometimes they need lymph scans if they're old enough, and then they get referred for therapy afterwards. So there's different tiers to the clinic as it goes. So they will often stay with the consultants all the time till they're, well, forever, to be honest, certainly till they're 18, and they get seen once a year, twice a year, every 2 years, whichever. But then they'll get referred either to a local therapy team if there's one nearby, or they'll come and see us. for managing and treating the swelling once it's been diagnosed. Does that help?
Yeah, very much so. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for setting the scene a little bit more. Didi, welcome. Didi Oko, student at University of Birmingham and Paralympian, and inspiration to all of us. Welcome. Thank you so much for spending that time with me last year. And
no worries. It was amazing.
And also for joining us today. We've got loads of questions, so I just want to get on with that because nobody wants to listen to me. Everyone wants to listen to you.
No, that's not true.
That's very true. But one of the things, Mark was just setting the scene around the Georges team and what it's like to go there, and we talked about that briefly in the interview. But I think what's key is that people are interested in is about the cellulitis episode that you had. And Mark, we know that so many people have cellulitis. So Mark, if I can come to you first, when can you safely exercise after having cellulitis? That's what somebody wants to know.
So cellulitis is individual. We know what kind of pattern it presents with when someone's poorly beforehand, when the antibiotics kick in. Hopefully we can be treated orally, doesn't need to be admitted, but some people do need to go into hospital to have IV antibiotics, which is all very scary. The antibiotics should clear up the infection. People start to feel better. And Didi, you can back me up. You know when you've turned a corner, you start to feel better. To go back to sport, it can only be when you feel like you can. I don't think there's a day or a week set time on it that until you can go back, because when your body knows, until you've had a cellulitis, and I haven't, but I've been around lots of people that have, when you're ready, you go back. So let the antibiotics take their course, let yourself feel better, and when you're ready, then you'll go back again. So I think it's listening to yourself and your own sporting levels when you should go back.
Didi, would you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. I kind of listen to how my body's feeling. I tend to know, I usually time it as about a week after not feeling any more pain in my leg. That's kind of how I measure it. Just more because obviously I have to try and get back into the sport, but it's more a case of if I'm still feeling it, because it's not just a pain thing, it's very much a fatigue. Like I won't be able to get on with the same sort of sessions I was getting on with. So even if you are trying to get back into exercise, it's really crucial that you do it in a very steady way, that you gradually go back into that stage rather than going straight back into like heavy sessions if you are doing heavier sessions, or even just like lower the workload in general.
That makes perfect sense. I think that would really help for people who are in a similar situation or feeling a bit unsure about things. And obviously, if it's a first episode of cellulitis, then that might be a much more unknown, and really is a case of sort of see how you feel.
Oh, I agree. I had with I think it was my first infection that we knew was an infection. I made the mistake of going back into sport too early, not understanding. And I also didn't finish my antibiotic course, which this is something you guys should all just, even if it says 14 days and you don't finish it, like you have to finish it off because it reoccurred and came back. So it's really crucial to listen to yourself. Even if it's a little bit hidden, because obviously I stopped taking the antibiotics a few days early thinking, oh, I'm feeling better, but then I wasn't better. So
I think it's important as well. We say this to adults, Didi, but when a teenager respectfully wants to kick back whenever they can, not finishing your antibiotics is fantastic, isn't it? It's great. It's not.
Yeah.
But it's the power you get as a teenager, but it doesn't always help you long term. So you're absolutely right for bringing that to the fore. So thanks for that.
And Didi, thinking on from that, obviously your chosen activity is athletics. So, that's your passion, that's your sport. But are there activities within your program that makes your lymphedema worse at any time? Is there anything that you avoid or anything that you have to be careful with?
So I avoid heavy impact stuff so I have to do gym sessions. And we've learnt that me doing an isolated exercise on my affected leg in the gym is not helpful at all. It makes me worse. So what tends to happen is my leg flares up, and then I'm out of doing any form of exercise for like a week or 2 weeks, and it sets me back and then makes me feel even worse. So there's certain different activities within that. And also so obviously I run, but we've limited my running sessions to maybe, even if it's a case if I just do 2 reps of a run, it's better than trying to do like 6, and then my leg tends to fatigue extremely quickly. So what will happen is after 2 reps, my leg will just give up, if that makes sense. So it gets so fatigued that it stops working properly. And then I'm conked out for another week. So it's like having to find the balance of how much work can you put in to have a good session.
But Mark, there's no specific activity or sport or recreational activity that we say you can't do with lymphedema. Is that right?
Correct. There's lots of people that want myths dispelled when they come. My child can't do PE. My child can't play football. And then it's convincing and educating the family that yes, they can. Yes, of course, you've got to be careful. I've got a couple of young ladies that do ice skating, rock climbing. Be careful. If you cut yourself, you've got to go right back to the risk of infection, that side of it. But keep ice skating, keep rock climbing. Do you know what I mean? If you're horse riding and you fall off, you're going to break something, probably, whether you've got lymphedema or not. Same as playing rugby. I've got sons that play rugby and break bones. And I've got lymphedema. The risk is still there. Do you see what I mean? But no, life should not be that limiting with any sport at all.
So we said that we're talking about barriers and fears around activity, and it sounds as though this session will help to break down some of that, which is exactly what we're hoping to do. And you talked, Mark, there about educating significant others and family members about this, so that their fear is not put onto that child or that individual with lymphedema as well. What about educating the wider sphere as well? Because Dee Dee, for example, with your own kind of medical team around you, you'll have medical staff within your Paralympic team and your own GP in primary care. Have you had to educate them about lymphedema?
It's been quite interesting because I've just switched coaches too, for example, and with that they have to learn the different levels of lymphedema and stuff along that journey with me. So it's very much they have to be kind of having that close relationship to understand better how to help me, because what I need is not the same as what somebody else would need within the team. So like, say for example, within physio, I have very low level exercises that my physio sets me, because he's now learned and understood how lymphedema can have effect on the joints due to the heaviness of the limb. So it's just finding a way to educate those in a better authority more efficiently. I think it definitely helps.
Mark, is there anything you'd add to that?
No, I don't think so. When you go to the Olympics, you're going to need to take me with you, Dee Dee, don't you? Because I'm probably best to advise all these medical people how. It's adults or children. My job is trying to get them to engage with the management. If something makes it worse, you're not going to do it. You're going to have to try and think a way around it. That's it. But it is educating everyone around it. I'm talking GPs, the coach. Part of the problem when we first met, Dee Dee, was that you've been told you couldn't do what you wanted to do, and that was. I looked into your eyes like with that bit, and I just thought, this poor girl. And the mum was looking. What's the answer? And I was like, oh God, this is a massive thing for this family. No, seriously. And how do we put this together again? Where do we start? Well, you start right from the beginning with educating this young lady. Mum and dad are reassured. Knock that onto the coach. Change the coach. Sorry, you know what I mean? And then and it worked out from there. So it's a massive work in progress. It never stops.
It's really important as well to have that baseline of information, because I was just being told, I can't do this, I can't do that. We're not going to coach you because you're injury prone and it's not worth it, and it's not worth it for us. And it's like, but that's just not right. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can still move and I can still do these different activities. It's just that I can do them in a different way now. So, yeah.
So I think you were touching on it there a little bit around what drives you, but everybody thinks you're inspirational on the chat and the questions, which Mark and I know you are. But how what motivates you? What drives you?
I think it's kind of setting that standard for my younger self. I think I would have, before my leg, I thought I was quite a strong person mentally and physically. And then when my leg did happen, it progressed. I wasn't the best version of myself. I actually can't recognize myself from now. So I think what really drives me is just being the best version of myself every day. Even when recognizing I'm not having as great of a day as I could have, nothing compared to how I was when I was younger and I didn't have the right mindset. So it's just always having that crucial reminder of this is what you're doing it for, setting that standard for everyone and making sure that you are being the best version of yourself. So,
and I take that forward to other families that come with struggling teenagers, and they do struggle, and toddlers. And I can say, we know lots of people, when the attitude changes, it changes. They will engage. Or what you said, tantrums, everything's going to happen. But you know what? When it shifts, it will shift, and it will just, just keep going, because it will engage, almost certainly. And you're a great example of that, Dee. So it's good.
Thank you. Yeah, it took a while, but I'm here.
You are definitely here. Mark, you have there's a question I'd like to put to you, which is from a community children's nurse who's joined us on the webinar today, Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Saying that they've got a couple of children with spina bifida. One's mobile, one's wheelchair bound, and both patients have inflammation in their lower limbs. Is there a link between this condition and lymphedema?
As far as I'm aware, spina bifida is reduced ability for that muscle pump to be working, whether the child or person is mobile or not. So if the child is not mobile, then you've got the idea that it's called leg dependency, where gravity takes over and the person sat in a chair and that bit below the knee isn't getting any help. Gravity's pulling things down and the muscle pump isn't working to help. So people with associated lymphedema, or children with associated lymphedema with spina bifida in wheelchairs, can be because the legs are just not moving. And similarly, I don't know to what extent the mobile child is mobile, but it's because that muscle pump isn't engaging properly, is the wrong word, or as it should. So it's kind of like trickling, the blood's sort of like not being pushed back, the lymph isn't being pushed back. So therefore you get swelling, you get lymphedema. But management of that is exactly the same as a mobile child, or if you need compression, we need skincare, all that kind of stuff going in. But we see that quite a lot. I hope that helps. I'm quite happy to chat. I know her name's Lisa. I'm happy to chat to you, Lisa, if you want to take that forward a bit more.
Thank you, Mark. That's lovely. That's really helpful. And that might not just be for spina bifida patients, might be other patients with similar conditions affecting reduced mobility. I'd like to talk a little bit about lympholytics, because it's something you both are passionate about, as am I. And Mark, as leading our working party this time, and Dee Dee having been to the event with us previously, can you tell us a bit more about this year's very hotly anticipated event?
Me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we're bringing it down south, which is hopefully going to get a few more numbers, because it's always been a struggle to get a lot of our southern contingent to go so far up north. As lovely as Sheffield is, it is a long way away. So we tried to look on the map to see where or not we can put it. And we actually see quite a lot of children in this clinic, because we're not tertiary referral. We are a tertiary referral service, so we see patients from all over the country, but a lot of ours are on the south coast, in Devon and Kent and obviously London. So having it in Bracknell, which is just across the way to Windsor, just looked ideal. It's got good links from everywhere else. And we found a fantastic sports centre, and the guy just wants to completely take over and show us how to do gym work, golf, there's gymnastics and everything else. There's a swimming pool there. So the whole day should be structured such that the children with lymphedema and or their siblings will all have a great day. In the afternoon, there'll be an education session. So I know Dr. Gordon, if she's listening, she can not back out now, is coming to do a question and answer session. I also did ask Professor Mortimer, but I know he'll be retired, so I'm going to try and pull him out of retirement to come and show his face. But also people like Dee Dee, I've got a handful of people that I do take inspiration from, that are going to come and stand and tell their story. And I know everyone knows your story now, Dee Dee, but it's timeless, and you can tell it as many times as you like, to inspire lots of our families that will be struggling and can't see the light at the end of the tunnel that you've got through, because it is, as you say, it doesn't go away. So the whole day should be really tied up well, Becky, as well it will be.
Sounds wonderful. And how do people find out more information about how to attend this?
So we each child if you're under a lymphedema service, you should be contacted by your team, hopefully. If not, the bls.com, if you look at resources and you look at the CLSIG, Children with Lymphedema Special Interest Group, that's got lympholytics. Click on it. There's a form for you to download, fill out and email it back to fantastic medical secretary Jackie, who's taking the realms this year. And she's already starting to collect the names and the data, and there's quite a few people coming. So it's looking very good. So it's as simple as that, registering and then, taking it from there.
Brilliant. So this will be about focusing again, in keeping with today's talk, around that. Everybody can get involved in these activities, no matter how restricted it may appear, breaking down some of the barriers to different sports and activities. So it might be something you've never tried before, never had a go at, don't know you're good at because you haven't had a go, or have been too fearful, or your parents or the family have been too fearful, and to take some risks and break some barriers. And Didi, I know you came along to Lympholytics and met some of the inspirational families and children with lymphedema and shared your experience and how you've smashed it and taken that forward. And would you say, as someone with lymphedema, that you would feel it would have been benefit when you were younger to have had something like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like when I walked in, I'd never been in a room with so many people who had the same condition as me, and I was kind of taken aback, because it kind of does bring you back to that realization that you really aren't alone, and there are other people struggling or persevering through just as you are. So it was a nice experience. It was lovely. Everyone was so happy and cheerful, and it was just a really lovely time. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
One of the mums at the last event I went to, and it stays with me always, she said, we always come to this event because it doesn't matter if my little girl's stocking falls down, she can pull it up. No one looks, no one cares. And I thought, that's inclusivity, isn't it? That's fantastic. Of course it is. You can't put a price on that. Fantastic.
Oh, thank you both. And that event is happening on the 21st of September, 24, as Mark says. Lots more information on the BLS website. And you mentioned the Children with Lymphedema Special Interest Group pages there, Mark, on the website. So there's a dedicated section with a set of resources, including the Children's Charter, including soon to be the guidelines that, Mark, I know you've been instrumental writing with over the both special services in the UK, in Derby and in St George's. So they're hotly awaited. There's also a regional map. So if you don't know where the services are for seeing children with lymphedema, there's a map there. That doesn't help Mark because his geography is appalling. So anything outside of London, he hasn't got a clue where we are. But we do try and help him out when he asks us to see a patient in the Outer Hebrides from Birmingham. But we try and help him. But
anything north of Dartford, I don't know where it's from. I don't know.
There's loads of resources on there. So if it's useful to you, guys, please get on there. And as Mark says, please get in touch. We're really happy as a group to answer your questions. Didi, I want to focus on you as our guest today, as our inspiration and motivation. When do we find out more about Team GB with you?
Well, I fly out to Italy next week, or a week and a half in advance. Yeah, in a week and a half, I fly out to Italy and I get my international classification done. Once I get that done, the week after that, I'll find out TBGB selections. So it shouldn't be too long now.
Oh, wow. We've got everything crossed for you, Didi. Honestly, absolutely brilliant. We'll all be watching your progress. We'll all be hanging on everything that happens with you. And we wish you the absolute world. Thank you so much for just giving your time so freely, for just being somebody who is just such a great vibe to be around. We really appreciate that. Mark, thank you so much. You have given up your time today, busy from clinic, I know, to join us and help us out with understanding more about how you guys in the hospital can support. And it doesn't have to always be scary and medical. You're all very approachable, we know, and make things as fun as can be. And I think that what we want to say, if there's anything that's been raised in this webinar, please do seek advice from the society, and we can put you in touch with the right people. Don't suffer alone. We want to keep raising awareness. So make sure that you Share these videos, these webinars with your colleagues, with anybody you think that might benefit. And we are committed to taking forward managing lymphedema in the best way possible for as many people as possible. So thank you very much for joining us today. We're really, really grateful. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this,
Thank
Becky.
you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us today. Bye-bye.